This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Catherine Fitz, Davis, California. Good Things to Eat, as Suggested by Rufus, by Rufus Estes. Section 14. Pies and Pastries. A good crust for great pies. To a peck of flour, add the yolks of 3 eggs. Boil some water, put in a ½ pound of fried suet and a pound and a half of butter. Skim off the butter and suet and as much of the liquor as will make a light crust. Mix well and roll out. Crust for custards. Take a ½ pound of flour, 6 ounces of butter, the yolks of 2 eggs, 3 spoonfuls of cream. Mix well and roll very thin. Dripping crust. Take a pound and a half of beef drippings. Boil in water, strain and let it get cold, taking off the hard fat. Scrape off and boil it 4 or 5 times. Then work it up well into 3 pounds of flour. Then add enough cold water to make dough, just stiff enough to roll. This makes a very fine crust. Paste for tarts. 1 pound of flour, 3/4 pound of butter, and just enough cold water to mix together. Beat well with a rolling pin. Puff paste. Take 1/4 peck of flour, rub in a pound of butter, make it up into a light paste with a little cold waters, just stiff enough to handle. Then roll out to about the thickness of a crown piece. Spread over with butter and sprinkle over with flour, then double up and roll out again. Double and roll out 7 or 8 times. It is then fit for all kinds of pies and tarts that require a puff paste. Apple pie. Make up a puff paste crust and lay some around the sides of a dish. Pare and quarter apples. Put a layer of apples in the dish, sprinkle with sugar, and add a little lemon peel cut up fine, a little lemon juice, a few cloves, then the rest of the apples, sugar, and so on. Sweeten to taste. Boil the peels and cores of the apples in a little water. Strain and boil the syrup with a little sugar. Pour over the apples. Put on the upper crust and bake. A little quince or marmalade may be used if desired. Pears may be used instead of apples, omitting the quince or marmalade. Pies may be buttered when taken from oven. If a sauce is desired, beat up the yolks of 2 eggs, add ½ pint of cream, little nutmeg and sugar. Put over a slow fire, stirring well until it just boils up. Take off the upper crust and pour the sauce over the pie, replacing the crust. Apple pie, Southern style. For 4 pies, ½ pound of butter, 1/4 pound of lard, ½ dinner teaspoon of salt. Work 4 cups flour and the above ingredients with a fork, and then mix with ice water. Mix it so it will just stick together. Then ready for use. Beaten cream pie. Line a plate with good paste. Prick in several places to prevent rising out of shape. Bake and spread over some jelly or jam about ½ an inch thick, and cover with 1 cup of cream beaten stiff with 2 rounding tablespoons of powdered sugar and flavored with 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Large lemon pie. Mix 3 level teaspoons of cornstarch smooth in a little cold water, and stir into 3 cups of boiling water. Cook 5 minutes. Stir in 1 level tablespoon of butter, the juice and grated yellow rind of 2 lemons, 1 1/2 cups sugar, and the yolks of 3 eggs. Cook until the egg thickens. Take from the fire and cool. Line a large pie plate with paste and gash it in several places to prevent rising unevenly. Bake and fill with the mixture. Cover with a meringue made from the whites of 3 eggs, beaten with 6 level tablespoons of powdered sugar. Set in the oven to color. Lemon pie. This is an old-fashioned pie because it is baked between 2 crusts, yet many have called it the best of all kinds. Grate the yellow rind of 2 lemons. Take off all the white skin and chop the remainder very fine, discarding all the seeds. Add 2 cups of sugar and 2 beaten eggs. Mix well and pour into a paste-lined plate cover and bake 30 minutes. Nut mince pies. 1 cup of walnut meats chopped fine, 2 cups of chopped apple, 1 cup of raisins, 1 1/2 cups of sugar, mixed with 1 teaspoon each of cinnamon and allspice, and 1/2 teaspoon each of cloves and salt, 1/2 cup of vinegar, and 1/2 cup of water or fruit juice. Mix thoroughly. This quantity makes 2 large pies. Pineapple cream pie. 1/2 cup butter, 1 cup sugar, 1 can shredded pineapple, 1/2 cup milk, 2 eggs. Cream the butter, add gradually the sugar, then the pineapple, milk, and eggs well beaten. Mix well and bake in one crust like custard pie. When cool, cover with a meringue or with whipped cream sweetened and flavored with vanilla. Plain pie paste. Sift 1 1/2 cups of flour with a saltspoon of salt and rub in 1/4 cup of lard. Moisten with very cold water until a stiff dough is formed. Pat out and lay on 1/4 cup of cold butter rolled out in a sheet. Fold in 3 layers, turn halfway around and pat out again. Fold and roll twice more. This will make 1 large pie with 2 crusts. Cherry pie. Make a good crust, lining the sides of a pie pan. Place stoned cherries, well sweetened, in the pan and cover with upper crust. Bake in slow oven. A few red currants may be added to the cherries if desired. Plums or gooseberry pies may be made in the same way. Cherry pie. Roll 2 large soda crackers into fine dust and stone cherries enough to measure 2 cups. Line a pie plate with good rich paste and scatter 1/2 cup of sugar over. Sprinkle 1/2 of the cracker dust and over that 1/2 of the cherries. Repeat the 3 layers, pour on 1 cup of cherry juice and cold water, cover with paste, and bake in a moderate oven. Fresh raspberry pie. Line a pie plate with rich paste, fill with raspberries and scatter on sugar to sweeten. Cover with a crust and bake in a quick oven. When done, draw from the oven, cut a gash in the top, and pour in the following mixture: the yolks of 2 eggs beaten light with a tablespoon of sugar and mixed with 1 cup of hot thin cream. Set back in the oven for 5 minutes. Green currant pie. Stew and mash a pint of rather green currants. Sweeten abundantly. Add a sprinkling of flour or a rolled cracker and bake with 2 crusts. Dust generously with powdered sugar. Green tomato pie. Take green tomatoes not yet turned and peel and slice wafer thin. Fill a plate nearly full. Add a tablespoon vinegar and plenty of sugar. Dot with bits of butter and flavor with nutmeg or lemon. Bake in 1 or 2 crusts as preferred. Lemon cream pie. Stir into 1 cup of boiling water 1 tablespoonful of cornstarch dissolved in a little cold water. Cook until thickened and clear. Then add 1 cup of sugar, a teaspoonful of butter, and the juice and grated rind of 2 lemons. Add the beaten yolks of 3 eggs and take from the fire. Have ready the bottom crust of a pie that has been baked, first pricking with a fork to prevent blisters. Place the custard in the crust and bake half an hour. When done, take from the oven and spread over the top a meringue made from the stiffly whipped whites of the eggs and 3 tablespoonfuls of sugar. Shut off the oven so it will be as cool as possible, giving the meringue plenty of time to rise, stiffen, and color to a delicate gold. Apple fritters. Beat the yolks of 8 eggs and the whites of 4 together. Add a quart of cream. Put over a fire and heat until you can bear your finger in it. Add 1/4 of a pint of sack, 3/4 of a pint of ale, and make a posset of it. When cool, put in nutmeg, ginger, salt, and flour. The batter should be pretty thick. Add pippins, sliced or scraped, and fry in deep fat. Apple slump. Fill a deep baking dish with apples, pared, cored, and sliced. Scatter on a little cinnamon and cover with good paste rolled a little thicker than for pie. Bake in a moderate oven until the apples are done. Serve in the same dish, cutting the crust into several sections. Before cutting, the crust may be lifted and the apples seasoned with butter and sugar, or the seasoning may be added after serving. A liquid or hard sauce may be served with the slump. If the apples are a kind that do not cook easily, bake half an hour, then put on the crust and set back in the oven. Bread puffs with sauce. When bread dough is raised light, cut off small pieces and pull out 2 or 3 inches long. Fry like donuts in deep fat and put into a deep dish. Turn over the puffs a cream sauce seasoned with salt and pepper. Cherry dumplings. Sift 2 cups of pastry flour with 4 level teaspoons of baking powder and a saltspoon of salt. Mix with 3/4 cup of milk, or enough to make a soft dough. Butter some cups well, put a tablespoon of dough in each, then a large tablespoon of stoned cherries and another tablespoon of dough. Set in a steamer or set the cups in a pan of hot water and into the oven to cook for a half an hour. Serve with a sweet liquid sauce. Cottage cheese tartlets. 1 cup cheese, 3 level tablespoons sugar, few grains salt, 2 teaspoons melted butter, 1 tablespoon lemon juice, yolks 2 eggs, 1/4 cup milk, whites 2 eggs. Press the cheese through a potato ricer or sieve. Then add the sugar, salt, butter, lemon juice, and the egg yolks, well beaten and mixed with the milk. Mix well and fold the whites of the eggs, beaten stiff. Line individual tins with pastry and fill 3/4 full with the mixture. Bake in a moderate oven for 30 minutes. Prune tarts. Wash the prunes thoroughly and soak overnight or for several hours. Cook in the same water. When very tender, rub them through a sieve. To 1 cup of the pulp, add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, the yolks of 2 eggs beaten with 1/2 cup of thin cream and a few grains of salt. Mix well and sweeten to taste, then fold in the whites of 2 eggs, beaten very stiff. Line small tins with paste, fill with the mixture, and bake in a moderate oven. Serve cold. Raspberry dumplings. Wash 1 cup of rice and put into the double boiler. Pour over it 2 cups of boiling water. Add 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar, and cook 30 minutes or until soft. Have some small pudding cloths about 12 inches square. Wring them out of hot water and lay them over a small half-pint bowl. Spread the rice 1/3 of an inch thick over the cloth and fill the center with fresh raspberries. Draw the cloth around until the rice covers the berries and they are a good round shape. Tie the ends of the cloth firmly, drop them into boiling water, and cook 20 minutes. Remove the cloth and serve with lemon sauce. Tart shells. Roll out thin a nice puff paste. Cut with a small biscuit cutter. With cutter, take out the centers of 2 or 3 of these. Lay the rings thus made on the third and bake immediately. Shells may also be made by lining patty pans with the paste. If the paste is light, the shells will be fine and may be used for tarts or oyster patties. Filled with jelly and covered with meringue, a tablespoonful of sugar to the white of an egg, and browned in the oven. Bavarian cream. Soak 1/4 of a box of gelatin in cold water until it is soft. Then dissolve it in a cup of hot milk with 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Flavor with vanilla and set away to cool. Whip 1 pint of cream, and when the gelatin is cold and beginning to stiffen, stir in the cream lightly. Form in mold. Boiled custard. Heat 2 cups of milk in a double boiler and pour onto the yolks of 3 eggs beaten light, with 3 rounding tablespoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. Return to the double boiler and cook until the spoon will coat with the custard. Cool and add flavoring. Calla lilies. Beat 3 eggs and a rounding cup of sugar together. Add 2/3 cup of flour and 1/2 teaspoon of lemon flavoring. Drop in teaspoonfuls on a buttered sheet, allowing plenty of room to spread in baking. Bake in a moderate oven. Take up with a knife and roll at once into lily shape. Bake but 4 or 5 at a time, because if the cakes cool even a little they will break. Fill each with a little beaten and sweetened cream. Cocoa custard. For 3 cups of milk, allow 4 tablespoons of cocoa, 3 beaten eggs, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Heat the milk, stir in the cocoa, and cool a little before pouring over the egg and sugar. Bake in custard cups set in a pan of hot water in a moderate oven. Coffee cream. Have 1 1/2 cups of strong coffee hot. Add 1 level tablespoon of gelatin soaked in 1/2 cup of milk for 15 minutes. When well dissolved, add 2/3 cup of sugar, a saltspoon of salt, and the yolks of 3 eggs beaten light. Stir in the double boiler until thick. Take from the fire and add the whites of 3 eggs beaten stiff and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Fill molds that have been dipped in cold water. Set in cool place, and when firm unmold and serve with powdered sugar and cream. Coffee cup custard. 1 quart milk, 1/4 cup ground coffee, 4 eggs, 1/2 cup sugar, 1/4 level teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon vanilla. Tie the coffee loosely in a piece of cheesecloth and put into double boiler with the milk. Scald until a good coffee color and flavor is obtained, then remove from the fire. Remove the coffee. Beat the eggs and add the sugar, salt, and vanilla, then pour gradually on the milk. Strain into cups, place in a pan of hot water, and bake in a moderate oven until firm in the middle. Less vanilla is required when combined with another flavoring. End of section 14.